On the sunlit shores of Galilee, life was simple, rhythmic, and full of routine. The fishermen cast their nets, the tax collectors tallied coins, and the zealots whispered of change in hushed tones. None of them could have imagined that on one ordinary morning, their lives were about to be forever transformed. Jesus of Nazareth, a man known not for power or wealth but for his words, his wisdom, and his compassion, walked along the shoreline, looking not at the influential or the elite, but at the ordinary. He did not seek kings, governors, or scholars. Instead, he saw potential in the humble, the overlooked, and the ordinary people whose hands were calloused from work, whose hearts bore the weight of daily life, and whose spirits carried both fear and hope. Among them were fishermen mending nets by the water's edge, tax collectors counting coins under the scorching sun, and zealots dreaming of freedom in a world bound by rules and oppression. To the outside eye, they were unremarkable. Yet Jesus? They were the foundation of a new movement that would ripple through history. Imagine Peter, casting his net for the umpteenth time, weary from the night's labor, when a stranger called out to him with an invitation that would challenge everything he knew. Or Andrew, whose curiosity and faith led him to introduce his brother to this man whose eyes seemed to see beyond ordinary life. These men, flawed and hesitant, faced a choice: continue their predictable existence or step into the unknown, leaving behind security, comfort, and certainty. And in that moment of decision, the ordinary became extraordinary. This story is not just about men from a distant time. It is about the power of transformation, the courage to follow, and the extraordinary potential within ordinary lives. As we journey through the stories of these 12 disciples, we will witness their fears, their doubts, and their moments of incredible faith. We will see how a simple call to follow can ignite purpose, courage, and love in ways that change not just individuals, but entire communities. If you are ready to step into this timeless journey of faith, courage, and transformation, make sure to hit the like button, share this story with friends, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring tales from history and scripture. Join us as we explore the lives of ordinary people called to do extraordinary things, and discover what lessons their journeys hold for us today. The story of the 12 disciples is waiting. Let us step into it together. The story of Peter, once a simple fisherman by the Sea of Galilee, begins with the gentle lapping of waves against a wooden boat at dawn. The salty breeze mixing with the scent of fresh catch and the promise of another day's labor. Peter, whose given name was Simon, had spent countless mornings and nights wrestling with nets, braving storms, and enduring the exhaustion that came with providing for his family. Life had a rhythm, predictable yet taxing. And in that rhythm, Peter found both security and limitation, never imagining that a single encounter could redefine the very essence of his existence. It was on one such morning, when the sun's first rays painted the horizon with gold and pink, that Peter's ordinary life intersected with the extraordinary. Jesus of Nazareth approached the shore, not as a wealthy patron or a military leader, but as a teacher whose presence carried authority, compassion, and an unseen power that stirred hearts. Peter had no titles, no influence, and no recognition beyond his small circle of family and fellow fishermen. Yet Jesus saw something in him that Peter himself had not yet recognized. "Follow me," Jesus said, a simple phrase that carried an irresistible weight. "And I will make you fishers of men." There was no negotiation, no hesitation on Jesus' part, but Peter hesitated, torn between the familiarity of the nets and boats and the call to a purpose that defied logic, routine, and expectation. Yet in a moment that would forever alter the course of his life, Peter chose to leave everything behind, stepping away from the life he had known to follow a man whose vision extended far beyond the shores of Galilee. The act was both daring and frightening, emblematic of Peter's boldness that would define his journey as a disciple. In the months and years that followed, Peter's boldness became evident in ways that were both inspiring and deeply human. He was the first to step forward in moments of revelation, often speaking or acting before fully understanding the consequences. Yet his heart remained aligned with the growing purpose he discovered in following Jesus. On the water during a storm, Peter's faith surged. Seeing Jesus walking on the waves, he called out, "If it is truly you, command me to come to you." And for a fleeting, miraculous moment, he did the impossible, stepping onto the turbulent waters and walking toward the one he trusted with his life. That courage was profound, yet his human vulnerability was equally evident. For the moment fear crept into his mind, he began to sink, crying out for rescue. Jesus' hand reached him immediately, not in reproach, but in a gentle reminder that even the boldest faith is tested, and that reliance on divine guidance transforms human uncertainty into enduring strength. Peter's journey was marked by such contrasts, moments of towering faith intertwined with moments of impulsiveness and doubt, making his story relatable to anyone striving to reconcile ambition, fear, and purpose. He witnessed miracles few others did, from healings to the transfiguration on the mountaintop. And through each encounter, his understanding of the divine deepened. He learned that leadership was not about authority, privilege, or recognition, but about humility, service, and the willingness to step forward in both courage and vulnerability. When Peter attempted to defend Jesus with a sword, severing an ear from an arresting soldier, he was immediately reminded that true strength resides not in violence, but in restraint, love, and commitment to a higher calling. Peter's transformation was not instantaneous. It unfolded over time, shaped by experiences that tested his faith and refined his character. From the initial call by the Sea of Galilee to the day he boldly addressed thousands after the resurrection, proclaiming repentance and faith in the name of Jesus. Peter's life was a testament to the way ordinary people can be called to extraordinary purpose. Who had once stumbled in fear, became a cornerstone of the early church, performing acts that inspired awe and devotion among those who witnessed them. The man who had quarreled, doubted, and faltered learned patience, discernment, and compassion, embodying the idea that human flaws do not disqualify one from greatness. Rather, they often illuminate the transformative power of faith, dedication, and unwavering commitment to a mission beyond oneself. Peter's story reminds us that extraordinary change often begins in the most ordinary circumstances. His hands, once roughened by fishing lines and nets, were later used to heal, guide, and teach. His voice, once confined to the small conversations of a fisherman, became the declaration of a new covenant for thousands. Through trials, missteps, and moments of doubt, Peter exemplified resilience, courage, and the willingness to embrace a calling that transcended personal ambition. His boldness was not the absence of fear, but the triumph of faith over hesitation, the choice to trust a vision greater than his own understanding. As we reflect on Peter's journey, we see more than a fisherman turned apostle. We witness a living example of transformation, showing that ordinary individuals, when guided by purpose, faith, and compassion, can leave an impact that reverberates across centuries. Peter's story encourages each of us to recognize potential within our own lives, to step courageously into opportunities that challenge and stretch us, and to embrace the imperfections that make our growth authentic and meaningful. From the first moment he left his nets to follow Jesus, to the day he boldly spoke to thousands. Peter's life illustrates that boldness, faith, and human vulnerability can coexist, creating a path for ordinary people to achieve extraordinary outcomes and inspire generations to come. James, the sons of Zebedee, were fishermen by trade, their lives framed by the rolling waves of Galilee and the steady rhythm of oars slicing through water at dawn. The scent of salt and fish ever present as they labored side by side with their father. Known among the disciples as the sons of thunder, their fiery spirits and outspoken nature often set them apart, hinting at a passion that could either ignite great good or unintended strife. Unlike Peter, whose boldness frequently manifested in impulsive acts, James and John carried a distinctive intensity, a combination of loyalty, ambition, and a deep desire to understand the mysteries of the world they had been thrust into. When Jesus first called them to follow him, the invitation was no mere suggestion but a call to leave behind nets, boats, and the security of a familiar life, and to step into a journey defined by faith, service, and the unseen workings of the divine. Their initial reaction was swift. The sons of Zebedee cast aside their nets with an urgency that reflected both awe and determination, leaving their father to continue alone, trusting in the greater purpose that had drawn them away from the ordinary to the extraordinary. As they walked alongside Jesus, their fiery temperament became a tool for growth, tested and refined by experiences that challenged their understanding of greatness, witnessing miracles healing the sick, calming storms, and raising the dead. James and John saw firsthand the transformative power of faith and divine presence. Yet the true lessons were often quieter, subtle moments in which pride had to be tempered and humility learned, moments in which service eclipsed recognition, and the welfare of others became the measure of influence rather than ambition. On more than one occasion, their desire for honor and special status within the kingdom led to private conversations with Jesus, asking for seats of prominence and distinction in the unfolding mission, only to be met with lessons that revealed the essence of leadership, that true greatness is measured by selflessness, compassion, and the willingness to serve others without expectation of reward. Through these lessons, the sons of thunder began to understand that passion, when aligned with purpose, could be a force for profound change, shaping communities and transforming hearts in ways that brute ambition or loud proclamation alone could never achieve. Their journey was also marked by moments of intense emotion, where their human tendencies collided with divine teaching, creating tension, growth, and transformation. They were present at the Mount of Transfiguration, witnessing Jesus' radiance and divine presence alongside Moses and Elijah, a moment that revealed truths too vast for ordinary comprehension and instilled a reverence that reshaped their understanding of mortality, responsibility, and spiritual insight. In these experiences, their fiery dispositions were not subdued but refined, channeled into courage, wisdom, and the capacity to act decisively in the face of challenges. Even when fear and uncertainty threatened to overwhelm them, they learned that witnessing miracles was not merely about observation, but about embodying the principles behind them. Practicing love, patience, and humility in daily life, and serving as conduits of inspiration for others struggling to understand the meaning and purpose of their own lives. James and John also accompanied Jesus in intimate moments of ministry, entering homes, healing the sick, and offering solace to the grieving, where their actions and presence taught them the subtle, often unnoticed forms of greatness. They observed the impact of a touch, a word of encouragement, and a willingness to sacrifice personal comfort for the welfare of others, gradually internalizing that leadership within this movement was inseparable from servanthood. The lessons were not always easy to accept. Fiery spirits, by nature, chafe against restraint and humility. Yet Their dedication to following Jesus softened their impulsiveness into disciplined courage and transformed their desire for recognition into a commitment to purpose. The Sons of Thunder's journey also underscores the tension between human inclination and spiritual calling. Their intense personalities and natural ambition were never erased, yet they were redirected, shaped to amplify the mission rather than overshadow it. James would eventually become a prominent figure in the early church, known for his steadfast faith and willingness to endure trials. While John, the beloved disciple, would cultivate a deep understanding of love, sacrifice, and the transformative power of connection. Together, they illustrate the balance between passion and wisdom, zeal and service, showing that human traits, when guided by insight and divine purpose, can become instruments of profound influence. Through their experiences, James and John embodied the principle that greatness is not measured by titles, power, or recognition, but by the quiet, steadfast acts of service that uplift others, the courage to follow a calling even when it defies comfort or expectation, and the commitment to live out values that extend beyond personal ambition. The lessons they learned through triumphs, failures, and miraculous encounters continue to resonate, demonstrating that even the most ordinary beginnings, when touched by purpose, can give rise to extraordinary lives. Their story reminds us that fiery spirits, tempered with wisdom and devotion, can navigate the challenges of both human nature and spiritual calling to leave a legacy of courage, service, and unwavering faith, inspiring generations to embrace the transformative power of humility, dedication, and love. John, the son of Zebedee and the younger brother of James, grew up beside the waters of Galilee, learning the art of fishing under the watchful eyes of his father and alongside his brother. His hands, skilled at managing nets and oars, were tempered by hard work and persistence, but his heart carried a curiosity and sensitivity that set him apart even among his own family. When Jesus called him to follow, John left behind the familiar cadence of waves and the security of livelihood, stepping into a world defined not by physical labor alone, but by the spiritual and transformative mission that awaited him. From the very beginning, John's loyalty and attentiveness became evident, for he remained close to Jesus, observing, learning, and absorbing lessons that went far beyond words, capturing the essence of love, compassion, and divine purpose. John's presence was constant during critical moments, his devotion unwavering. He was there on the night of the Last Supper, quietly listening, absorbing the significance of Jesus' teachings about sacrifice, service, and unity. While others struggled with fear or doubt, John displayed a unique steadiness, a combination of empathy and courage that allowed him to witness events that would define the foundation of a new faith. At the crucifixion, when many disciples had fled in terror, John stood at the foot of the cross, his gaze fixed not only on the suffering of Jesus, but on the grieving figure of Mary, the mother of Jesus. In a profound act of trust and responsibility, Jesus entrusted John with her care, saying, "Here is your mother," a moment that marked John's role not merely as a follower, but as a guardian, a protector, and a symbol of enduring compassion. This duty, taken on voluntarily and with love, reflected the depth of his character and set the tone for a life committed to service and devotion. As the years progressed, John's dedication did not waver. He became an author of profound theological insights, contributing several books of the New Testament that continue to guide and inspire countless believers. His writings reflect not only his intimate knowledge of Jesus' life and teachings, but also his contemplative nature, a mind attuned to understanding love, faith, and the relationship between the divine and humanity. Through the Gospel of John, the letters of 1, 2, and 3 John, and the apocalyptic visions of Revelation, John offered perspectives that combined doctrinal clarity with personal reflection, creating works that resonate across centuries. Each passage reveals a disciple who deeply understood human vulnerability, the necessity of faith, and the transformative power of love, showing that intellectual insight and spiritual devotion can coexist harmoniously in a life devoted to purpose. John's journey was not without trials. Tradition holds that in his later years, he was exiled to the island of Patmos during a period of persecution, a solitary place where his commitment to the message of Jesus was tested in isolation. Yet even in this remoteness, John's vision and insight flourished. The visions he received on Patmos, recorded in the book of Revelation, were extraordinary, filled with symbolic imagery and profound revelation that spoke to both the immediate struggles of his time and the timeless challenges of human faith. In the quiet and hardship of exile, John's understanding deepened, illustrating that devotion and perseverance often bring clarity, insight, and strength that can only emerge through endurance and reflection. John's role as a disciple demonstrates a balance of steadfast loyalty, spiritual insight, and compassionate responsibility, while his brothers and peers faced trials and opportunities in various forms. John consistently embodied the principles he learned at Jesus' side: empathy for the suffering, courage in the face of fear, and a commitment to nurturing both individuals and communities. His care for Mary was emblematic of this approach, blending personal loyalty with a larger spiritual mission, showing that the essence of discipleship encompasses both intimate responsibility and broader influence. Moreover, John's literary contributions reveal a mind capable of articulating the profound mysteries of faith with clarity and emotional resonance, creating a bridge between lived experience and theological reflection that continues to guide those seeking understanding and inspiration. Throughout his life, John exemplified the idea that devotion is active, not passive, that loyalty is demonstrated through care, guidance, and unwavering presence. He remained committed to the vision he embraced at the Sea of Galilee, translating it into acts of service, writings that inspire reflection, and a life that endured hardship without compromising principle. His story is a testament to the transformative power of sustained faith and the impact one individual can have when dedication is paired with insight, empathy, and courage. By observing John's journey, we see that true discipleship involves more than witnessing miracles or performing deeds of faith. It requires the integration of compassion, understanding, and purpose into every action, a dedication to nurturing others as well as advancing the larger mission of hope and redemption. John's life reminds us that faith and loyalty are strengthened through commitment, that influence arises not from ambition alone but from love and responsibility, and that insight often grows from perseverance in solitude and challenge. From the Sea of Galilee to the isolation of Patmos, from the intimate care of Mary to the composition of foundational texts, John's story illustrates that a life devoted to purpose can combine personal devotion, service to others, and the courage to witness truth even in the most trying circumstances. His legacy endures as a model of loyalty, courage, and spiritual insight, showing that ordinary beginnings can lead to extraordinary impact when tempered by love, reflection, and unwavering commitment to a higher calling. Matthew, a man whose life had been shaped by the tables of taxation and the quiet judgment of his community, spent his days collecting what was owed to the Roman authorities, a profession that rendered him an outsider in the eyes of his neighbors, and a figure often met with suspicion or disdain. Known as Levi before his calling, he lived in the margins of social acceptance, where wealth from his work could not purchase respect, and compliance with the law brought moral scrutiny rather than praise. Yet beneath the ledgers and the reputation as a tax collector, Matthew possessed a mind that longed for purpose beyond mere calculation and a heart that secretly questioned the meaning of his place in the world. waiting for a moment that would ignite transformation. It was in this ordinary, marginalized existence that Jesus saw him not as a number or a sinner defined by societal labels, but as a man capable of extraordinary change, whose encounter would reveal the power of faith to reorient a life towards something greater. One day, as Matthew sat at his tax booth, attending to the mundane but essential business of collecting dues, Jesus passed, his presence commanding attention without the need for wealth or authority, emanating a quiet power that drew people from every walk of life. In a moment that would forever alter the trajectory of his existence, Jesus looked upon Matthew and extended a simple, yet profound invitation. "Follow me." That call, resonating far beyond the sound of ordinary speech, stirred something deep within Matthew, a recognition that the life he had known, bound by social expectations and self-imposed limitations, could give way to a purpose imbued with meaning, compassion, and service. Without hesitation, he left behind his tables, his coins, and the security of his accustomed routine, stepping into a journey where societal labels held no weight, and the measure of a man was no longer determined by public approval, but by the depth of his commitment to a higher calling. Matthew's transformation was both immediate and gradual, a blending of awe, devotion, and the daily challenges of living in accordance with the teachings of Jesus. He invited Jesus into his home, welcoming friends and neighbors, many of whom were considered outsiders by the religious establishment, to witness the message of hope, forgiveness, and restoration. This act of hospitality, seemingly simple, carried immense significance, for it demonstrated Matthew's embrace of a new identity, one that was defined not by profession or reputation but by faith and courage. Through these gatherings, Matthew began to understand the radical nature of Jesus' teachings, how love could transcend social barriers, how repentance could restore dignity, and how the call to discipleship required not only following but also inviting others to share in the journey. As he walked alongside Jesus, Matthew witnessed miracles, heard parables, and absorbed teachings that reshaped his understanding of justice, compassion, and the nature of human relationships. Each encounter, whether it was seeing the sick healed, the blind given sight, or the hungry fed, expanded the contours of his heart, teaching him that true service required empathy, humility, and courage to challenge the expectations of society. The lessons were lived as much as they were taught. Matthew's faith matured in the rhythms of daily life, in moments of doubt, in times of courage, and in the choices to act with integrity despite the risks posed by his former associations and societal judgment. Matthew's story also underscores the power of personal transformation to impact others. His decision to follow Jesus inspired those around him, demonstrating that no life is beyond redemption and that societal outcasts can become beacons of faith and integrity. By embracing his calling, Matthew not only altered his own destiny, but also contributed to the growth of a movement that would reach far beyond Galilee, influencing countless lives across generations. His writings, later captured in the gospel attributed to him, reflect an understanding of human frailty, divine mercy, and the potential for renewal, offering insight into the profound changes that occur when an ordinary life is met with extraordinary purpose. Through Matthew, we see that transformation often begins with a single encounter, a moment when the ordinary is seen through a lens of possibility, and a life once defined by limitation is redirected toward service, faith, and community. His journey illustrates that societal labels do not define spiritual potential, that past mistakes or public perception cannot constrain a heart open to change, and that true discipleship is measured by the courage to embrace a calling that transcends convention. Matthew's example continues to resonate, reminding us that the invitation to follow, no matter how simple it may appear, carries the power to transform not only the individual but also the broader community, creating ripples of faith, hope, and renewal that endure across time. In the life of Matthew, the tax collector turned devoted disciple, we witness the profound intersection of divine invitation and human response, a story of redemption, courage, and the relentless pursuit of purpose. From the solitary tax booth to the shared tables of fellowship, from a life of social marginalization to one of spiritual significance, Matthew embodies the possibility that transformation is always within reach for those willing to answer the call with faith, humility, and a heart open to change. His journey teaches that no one is beyond the reach of grace, no life is too ordinary to impact the extraordinary, and that the path of discipleship, while challenging, is ultimately a journey toward purpose, connection, and enduring influence. Thomas, known to his peers as Didymus, the twin, lived in a world defined by both devotion and doubt. A man whose heart and mind wrestled with questions that many others might have suppressed out of fear or convention. For his nature was to seek understanding before fully embracing belief. When Jesus called him to follow, Thomas joined the circle of disciples with sincerity and enthusiasm. Yet beneath his commitment lay a cautious heart, one that sought evidence before surrendering completely to faith. A disposition that would later earn him a reputation not for weakness, but for depth of conviction. Unlike some of the other disciples who moved with impulsive courage or unquestioning loyalty, Thomas carried a need to reconcile the unseen with the tangible, to ensure that the extraordinary claims surrounding Jesus were rooted in truth, and it is this very pursuit that would define his enduring legacy. The turning point in Thomas's journey came in the shadow of tragedy and hope intertwined. After the crucifixion of Jesus, when grief hung heavy over the disciples and fear threatened to paralyze them, whispers of the resurrection reached Thomas. Yet his instinct was not to accept these reports at face value. He declared with honesty that he would not believe unless he could see the marks of the nails and place his hand into the wounded side of the one who had died. To many, this insistence might have seemed stubborn or incredulous, but it reflected a profound desire to engage faith with understanding, to bridge the gap between doubt and certainty, and to embrace a belief that was fully informed rather than superficial. His demand for proof was not a rejection of Jesus, but a testament to the seriousness with which he approached truth and devotion, a quality that made his eventual faith all the more powerful and inspiring. When the resurrection was revealed to Thomas, the encounter was both intimate and transformative. Jesus appeared to the gathered disciples, knowing the questions in Thomas' heart, inviting him to witness and touch the wounds, saying gently yet profoundly, "Put your finger here, and see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." In that moment, Thomas' hesitation transformed into unwavering conviction, and with a voice resonating with awe and recognition, he proclaimed, "My Lord and my God." This declaration was not a mere acknowledgement of Jesus' resurrection, but a confession of faith that arose from the honest engagement of doubt and inquiry, illustrating that skepticism, when paired with openness and sincerity, can lead to the deepest and most enduring forms of belief. Thomas' journey did not end with this revelation. He went on to embody a disciple who integrated questioning with action, using his experiences to teach, guide, and inspire others. Tradition holds that he traveled extensively, carrying the message of Jesus into distant lands, including India, where his missionary work laid foundations for communities that still commemorate him centuries later. The journey of Thomas demonstrates that doubt need not be an obstacle to faith. Rather, it can serve as a catalyst for a more profound understanding. Encouraging exploration, dialogue, and a personal encounter with truth. His life challenges the notion that unquestioning adherence is the only path to discipleship, showing instead that genuine inquiry, when met with honesty and courage, can yield faith that is resilient, informed, and deeply transformative. Moreover, Thomas' story resonates because it captures a universal human experience, the tension between belief and evidence, hope and skepticism, fear and courage. His insistence on proof speaks to anyone who has struggled to reconcile faith with reality, who has yearned for assurance yet feared the judgment of doubt. Through Thomas, we learn that spiritual growth often emerges not from certainty alone, but from grappling with questions, confronting the unknown, and seeking experiences that illuminate truth. His journey reveals that faith is not diminished by inquiry. It is strengthened when the heart and mind engage fully, allowing belief to mature and take root in lived understanding rather than blind acceptance. As Thomas moved forward, his life became a testament to the enduring power of engagement, reflection, and commitment. He exemplified a disciple who embraced both the human need for clarity and the spiritual call to trust, demonstrating that the path to faith can be both rigorous and rewarding. By questioning, by demanding to witness, and by ultimately embracing the reality of the resurrection, Thomas provided a model for all who wrestle with doubt, that authentic faith is built on honesty, encounter, and personal conviction, and that the journey from skepticism to belief can illuminate the transformative potential of spiritual experience. Thomas also reminds us that courage in faith does not always manifest as bold public action, but can appear in the quiet, persistent pursuit of understanding, in the willingness to confront uncertainty, and in the humility to accept guidance when the truth is revealed. His story bridges the human and the divine, showing that spiritual insight often arises when intellect and heart are aligned, when doubt meets openness, and when the quest for truth is met with the grace of revelation. His life encourages disciples today to approach faith with both curiosity and reverence, knowing that questioning is not the opposite of belief, but a vital step toward deeper comprehension, connection, and commitment. Ultimately, Thomas stands as a symbol of the journey from uncertainty to conviction, illustrating that faith founded on inquiry, honesty, and personal encounter is enduring and transformative. His legacy teaches that sincere questioning is not only permissible but essential for growth, that doubt can lead to clarity, and that the pursuit of truth, when guided by integrity and openness, can result in a faith that inspires, sustains, and empowers. Through Thomas, we see the remarkable truth that those who seek evidence with honest hearts may ultimately experience a faith that is both profound and unwavering, a faith that transforms ordinary human lives into extraordinary witnesses of love, hope, and divine purpose. Philip, a man of quiet devotion and steadfast curiosity, lived in a world where encounters with the extraordinary were rare and moments of divine revelation even rarer. Yet he possessed a heart attuned to the stirrings of possibility and a mind receptive to the truths that lay just beyond ordinary perception. When Jesus called him to follow, Philip responded with immediacy, a reflection not of impulsive eagerness, but of an inner recognition that something transformative awaited him, a presence that would forever alter the course of his life and the lives of those he would touch. Unlike many who hesitate or doubt when confronted with the unfamiliar, Philip's instinct was to act, to seek, and to share, embodying the principle that discipleship is not only personal but also relational, extending outward in ways that invite others into the experience of faith and understanding. It was this disposition that led Philip to Nathanael, a man whose life had been shaped by skepticism and caution, a figure known for his discerning mind and his reluctance to accept claims without proof. Nathanael, from the town of Cana in Galilee, carried both intelligence and reserve, often questioning those who spoke of the Messiah. pondering deeply over what was proclaimed versus what could be verified. When Philip approached him with the news that they had found the one foretold by Moses in the law, and by the prophets the Messiah, Jesus of Nazareth, Nathanael's response was a mixture of intrigue and doubt, a reflection of a heart willing to consider but unwilling to accept without evidence. "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" he asked, revealing both the prejudice and the curiosity that shaped his outlook. Philip, however, did not argue or pressure. Instead, he extended a simple, compelling invitation. "Come and see." In these 3 words lay a profound demonstration of faith in action, an invitation to encounter rather than debate, to witness rather than speculate, a method of discipleship rooted in trust and relational connection. Nathanael's encounter with Jesus would become a pivotal moment in his life, one that illustrates the movement from skepticism to belief and the power of personal experience to transform understanding. As he approached, Jesus saw him and declared, "Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no deceit." The words struck Nathanael profoundly, revealing an awareness of his inner character that transcended ordinary human perception. Astonished, Nathanael asked how Jesus knew him, to which Jesus replied, "Before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree." See, in that instant, the veil of doubt lifted, replaced by recognition and awe, and Nathanael's skepticism gave way to a declaration of faith. "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." This moment, bridging doubt and belief, underscores the power of personal encounter, of witness over argument, and of invitation over persuasion, illustrating that transformation often requires more than reasoning. It requires experiencing truth directly. Philip's role in this narrative is significant because it exemplifies the relational dimension of discipleship, showing that the call to faith is often extended through those who themselves are walking the path, who invite, who guide, and who create space for others to encounter the divine personally. His approach demonstrates patience, respect for individual inquiry, and an understanding that belief cannot be forced but can be cultivated through openness and invitation. Philip did not impose. He did not coerce. He simply shared what he had discovered, trusting that Nathanael's encounter would speak for itself, a model of discipleship that emphasizes integrity, humility, and relational influence. The transformation of Nathanael from doubt to faith also carries a broader lesson about human engagement with truth. His initial skepticism was not condemned. Rather, it became the pathway through which he arrived at a deeper, more informed conviction. This narrative challenges assumptions about doubt as a weakness, showing instead that careful questioning, when met with opportunity and encounter, can lead to authentic and resilient belief. Nathanael's journey reveals that skepticism, when coupled with openness, curiosity, and willingness to engage with evidence, can enhance understanding and deepen the personal commitment that forms the foundation of enduring faith. Together, Philip and Nathanael's story highlights a dynamic that resonates across all generations: the transformative power of relational guidance, the importance of inviting others to witness rather than merely instructing them, and the ways in which honest inquiry can lead to profound spiritual insight. Philip's initiative and Nathanael's responsiveness demonstrate that discipleship is not a solitary pursuit but a shared journey, one in which encouragement, invitation, and exposure to truth in lived experience cultivate the seeds of faith. Their interaction exemplifies a balance between action and reflection, between witness and reception, showing that both the guide and the seeker have crucial roles in the unfolding of spiritual understanding. Philip's life after this encounter continued in the spirit of invitation and faithful service, accompanying Jesus, witnessing miracles, learning teachings, and participating in the expansion of the message to others. Nathanael, transformed by personal experience, joined the disciples fully, carrying a faith forged not in hearsay but in encounter, and serving as a testament to the power of moving from doubt to belief through direct experience and openness of heart. This partnership reminds us that the journey of faith often begins with invitation, grows through personal encounter, and flourishes through the integration of reflection, understanding, and lived practice. Ultimately, the narrative of Philip bringing Nathanael to Jesus exemplifies how the seemingly ordinary acts of connection, encouragement, and patient guidance can lead to extraordinary transformations. It illustrates that belief is often cultivated not through force or argument but through invitation, experience, and relational witness, and that even the most skeptical heart can be open to profound conviction when given the opportunity to encounter truth personally. Their story teaches that faith grows in community, flourishes in the presence of honesty and openness, and reaches its fullest expression when individuals move from curiosity and questioning to genuine recognition and commitment, leaving a legacy of hope, inspiration, and enduring discipleship. James, son of Alphaeus, often called James the Less to distinguish him from the more prominent James, along with Jude Thaddeus and Simon the Zealot, walked paths of quiet dedication, living lives marked not by public recognition or dramatic displays but by steadfast commitment and faithful service that would ripple through history in subtle yet profound ways. Unlike the more visible apostles who frequently spoke, acted boldly, or were remembered for their dramatic encounters with Jesus, these men operated largely in the background, their contributions woven into the fabric of the early church with threads of humility, perseverance, and unwavering devotion. From the moment Jesus called them, they accepted a mission that demanded more than courage. It required patience, faithfulness, and a willingness to serve without immediate reward or acclaim, a type of discipleship that illustrates the quiet but essential power of steadfast loyalty and the transformative impact of devotion lived out consistently over time. James, son of Alphaeus, exemplifies this quiet steadfastness. His story, though less detailed in the Gospels, reflects a man committed to following Jesus through daily learning, personal sacrifice, and ongoing presence in the life of the disciples. He is consistently listed among the 12, participating in gatherings, witnessing teachings, and contributing to the collective mission of spreading the message of Christ. Though his name may not dominate the narratives, his presence and obedience exemplify the principle that true discipleship is not always measured by visibility or accolades but by reliability, humility, and the willingness to support a greater purpose, reminding us that devotion often manifests most powerfully in consistent, faithful acts that might escape notice yet hold lasting significance. Jude Thaddeus, sometimes identified as Judas, son of James, carries a similar narrative of quiet but essential service. He engaged deeply in the communal life of the early followers, asking questions, seeking understanding, and demonstrating a genuine desire to comprehend the teachings of Jesus. Even though history has not granted him the same spotlight as Peter or John, Jude's dedication is evident in the early church's records, where he remains present in prayerful gatherings, awaiting the promised Holy Spirit and participating in the expansion of the mission once empowered. His legacy, including veneration in Christian tradition as a helper in desperate situations, highlights the enduring influence of those who commit themselves to service and faith without seeking fame, showing that acts of devotion, even when performed quietly, can resonate across generations. Simon the Zealot adds another layer to this narrative of background faithfulness. his life illustrating a profound transformation from a revolutionary mindset to one of spiritual dedication. Known historically as a zealot, Simon would have once harbored intense desires for political upheaval, passionate about expelling oppressors through force. Yet, upon following Jesus, he redirected that fervor toward a life of service grounded in love, reconciliation, and peaceful ministry. His journey from political zeal to spiritual devotion underscores a broader theme: the capacity for profound personal change when ordinary individuals encounter divine purpose, transforming former convictions into enduring acts of faithful commitment. Simon's background service, alongside the other less celebrated apostles, reinforces the idea that faithfulness often thrives in the unseen, in the moments and choices that may not attract attention but are essential for the cohesion and strength of the early church's mission. Together, these three apostles exemplify a crucial dimension of discipleship: the significance of faithful service without seeking recognition, of dedication rooted in integrity and commitment rather than personal gain or public acclaim. While Peter, John, and James the Greater often take center stage in the stories of miracles and bold proclamations, James the Less, Jude Thaddeus, and Simon the Zealot demonstrate that the spiritual enterprise relies as much on steady, reliable support as on visible acts of heroism. Their lives remind us that enduring impact often stems from the quiet consistency of those who live their faith through daily obedience, steadfast presence, and unwavering commitment to principles higher than themselves. Even in the backdrop of grand narratives, these men were present at pivotal moments, participating in communal prayer, observing Jesus' teachings, and later carrying forward the mission of the church with perseverance. They may not have performed the more dramatic miracles or delivered the most memorable sermons, but their presence was foundational, creating stability, continuity, and a model of devotion for others to follow. Their willingness to serve faithfully, often without reward or recognition, models a form of discipleship that is both accessible and transformative, showing that influence and spiritual legacy are not confined to acts of spectacle, but emerge powerfully through consistent, committed living. Their stories also underscore the universality of spiritual calling, that the work of faith is not reserved for the charismatic or the bold alone, but also for those who bring diligence, patience, and steadfastness to their roles, however modest they may appear. James, Jude, and Simon illustrate that devotion is measured by reliability, character, and commitment to a higher purpose, and that their unseen contributions were as crucial to the mission of Jesus' followers as the more celebrated acts of others. This quiet devotion forms a critical narrative strand, showing that spiritual transformation and lasting impact are achievable through faithful service, humility, and the willingness to engage wholeheartedly, even without public acknowledgement. In reflecting on the lives of James the Less, Jude Thaddeus, and Simon the Zealot, we recognize a powerful lesson. Faith is as much about the unseen, consistent work of the humble and devoted as it is about dramatic moments of recognition. Their dedication exemplifies the enduring truth that spiritual influence and legacy are cultivated through service, perseverance, and the courage to remain committed even when unnoticed, demonstrating that all contributions to a mission of love, truth, and transformation hold profound significance. In honoring their stories, we are reminded that devotion, lived faithfully and quietly, possesses the power to shape communities, inspire future generations, and sustain the work of faith across centuries, creating ripples of impact that, though often unseen, are essential to the greater narrative of spiritual growth and transformation. Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 apostles chosen by Jesus to walk closely alongside him, presents a narrative that is both compelling and cautionary, illustrating a complex intersection of human choice, moral failure, and divine foreknowledge, and reminding us that mere proximity to holiness does not guarantee the cultivation of faith or integrity. From the moment he was selected to be part of Jesus' inner circle, Judas was entrusted with opportunities that many would consider transformative. He witnessed miracles with his own eyes, heard teachings directly from the Son of God, and participated in the intimate fellowship of the disciples, sharing in meals, conversations, and journeys that revealed the character and mission of Jesus. Despite this unparalleled access, Judas' heart remained ensnared by desires, doubts, and inner conflicts that would eventually lead him to betray the one who had called him with love and vision, demonstrating that spiritual closeness alone cannot replace personal accountability and the cultivation of genuine belief. Judas' story begins with the same calling that transformed ordinary lives into instruments of extraordinary change. Like the other disciples, he was an ordinary man, chosen not for status or power but for his potential to engage with a life-altering mission. Yet, unlike many of his companions whose hearts aligned progressively with Jesus' teachings, Judas struggled with internal dissonance, and perhaps a sense of dissatisfaction or ambition that subtly eroded his capacity for faithful devotion. As he walked alongside Jesus, he saw acts of compassion that challenged worldly values, observed miracles that defied natural law, and participated in moments of revelation that would inspire awe and devotion in the other disciples. But within him, a tension brewed, a tension between what he witnessed and the choices he ultimately allowed to govern his actions. The pivotal moment of Judas' betrayal was set in motion by choices that, while seemingly small at times, accumulated into a decisive action that would forever alter the course of history. The Gospels recount his approach to the chief priests, negotiating the 30 pieces of silver for which he would hand over Jesus, an act that reflects not merely greed but also a profound misalignment of values, a willingness to prioritize immediate personal gain over loyalty, integrity, and recognition of the divine mission he had been called to serve. It is striking that Judas, who had shared meals with Jesus and witnessed acts of unparalleled love and mercy, could commit such a calculated act, revealing the complexity of human motives and the danger inherent in failing to cultivate inner alignment with spiritual truths, even when one is physically present amidst them. Judas' betrayal highlights a profound lesson about human agency and the responsibility that comes with privilege. His proximity to Jesus, rather than guaranteeing faithfulness, exposed the gap between external opportunity and internal readiness, underscoring that being in the presence of goodness, wisdom, or divine insight does not automatically transform character. Judas' choices remind us that faith and integrity are cultivated through intentionality, reflection, and moral courage, not through mere exposure to sacred experiences or association with virtuous individuals. Despite hearing Jesus' teachings and witnessing miracles, Judas allowed unresolved desires and unexamined impulses to direct his actions, resulting in a rupture that would mark him in history as the archetype of betrayal. Yet even in the shadow of his failure, Judas' story contributes to the broader narrative of the disciples by clarifying the stakes of discipleship and illustrating the stark contrast between authentic devotion and self-serving proximity. While Peter, John, and others learned to temper human weakness with faith and action, Judas' example serves as a cautionary tale. It demonstrates that relational closeness to divine purpose is insufficient without active engagement of conscience, moral reflection, and heartfelt alignment with the mission entrusted to one's care. His life exposes the vulnerabilities that all humans face: the capacity to witness greatness, yet still choose the path of self-interest, the ability to see miracles and remain unmoved, the potential to stand at the threshold of divine truth and yet turn away. The aftermath of Judas' actions further deepens the narrative complexity, revealing the consequences of choices made in opposition to integrity and the divine plan. After the betrayal, he experiences despair, returning the silver and ultimately taking his own life, a tragic conclusion that reflects both remorse and the irreversible nature of certain decisions. This denouement emphasizes the weight of accountability, showing that actions have consequences not only for others but for oneself, and that proximity to goodness does not excuse neglect of personal moral responsibility. In a broader sense, Judah's life and choices reinforce the idea that faithfulness requires active participation and continual self-examination, that spiritual maturity demands not only external engagement but inner transformation, and that the path to enduring impact is navigated through intentional ethical alignment rather than passive presence. Integrating Judah's story into the wider tapestry of the 12 apostles creates a striking counterpoint that illuminates the diverse outcomes of discipleship. While Peter, John, and the quieter apostles demonstrated growth, faith, and service, Judah's trajectory reveals the consequences of failing to internalize the values witnessed and taught by Jesus. His actions create narrative tension that amplifies the triumphs of the faithful apostles and deepens our understanding of the human challenges inherent in discipleship, including temptation, self-interest, and the persistent need for conscious alignment with divine purpose. Ultimately, Judah's life underscores a timeless lesson. Being near goodness or truth is not sufficient to cultivate genuine faith. It is the intentional engagement of heart, mind, and action that shapes one's spiritual destiny. His story warns against complacency, highlighting that opportunities to act rightly require deliberate choice, self-awareness, and moral courage, and that failure to respond faithfully can result in profound consequences both personally and historically. Judah's betrayal, while tragic, enriches the collective story of the disciples, illustrating the full spectrum of human response to divine invitation, and reminding all who hear his story that faithfulness is a matter of the heart as much as circumstance, and that proximity alone is never a substitute for true conviction. As we reach the conclusion of this journey through the lives of the 12 disciples, it becomes clear that their stories are far more than historical accounts. They are living examples of the transformative power of faith, courage, and devotion. Each disciple, from fishermen and tax collectors to zealots and skeptics, was an ordinary person, called to a mission that seemed beyond their capacity. Yet through their willingness to follow Jesus, their lives were forever changed. Peter, bold and impulsive yet deeply faithful, illustrates how human flaws do not disqualify one from greatness. His journey from fear and doubt to leadership and courage shows that growth often comes through trials, reflection, and a willingness to embrace responsibility. James, the sons of thunder, teach us that even the most passionate personalities can be shaped by love and service, learning that true greatness is found not in dominance or recognition, but in humility and dedication to others. John's unwavering loyalty and compassion remind us that faith is expressed in care for others, in responsibility for those entrusted to us, and in steadfastness through trials and persecution. Matthew's transformation from a societal outcast into a devoted follower highlights the radical nature of spiritual calling, showing that no background or past mistake limits the potential for meaningful impact. Thomas, who wrestled with doubt, teaches that questioning and seeking proof are not the opposite of faith, but pathways to deeper understanding and conviction. Philip and Nathanael demonstrate the ripple effect of bringing others into the light, showing how one person's initiative can inspire belief and action in those around them. The quieter apostles James, son of Alphaeus, Jude Thaddeus, and Simon the Zealot remind us that influence is not measured by visibility or acclaim but by consistent, faithful service. Their devotion, often unseen, provided stability and continuity to the early church, proving that ordinary lives, when committed to a higher purpose, can have extraordinary influence. Even Judas Iscariot, whose betrayal shows the dangers of proximity without conviction, contributes to the story by illustrating the importance of intentional, conscious faith and the consequences of failing to align one's actions with one's beliefs. Taken together, the 12 disciples' lives form a tapestry of transformation that stretches far beyond their time. They teach us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. That service is the truest measure of greatness. That perseverance through doubt, failure, and adversity is the foundation of enduring impact. And that ordinary people, when called and willing to follow, can enact extraordinary change. Their collective journey underscores a profound truth, that the power to shape history, to inspire others, and to bring hope to the world does not belong solely to the powerful, the learned, or the privileged, but is available to anyone willing to embrace faith, purpose, and action. As we reflect on these stories, we are reminded that the same call that transformed fishermen, tax collectors, and zealots centuries ago resonates still today. Each of us, in our own way, encounters opportunities to serve, to act with courage, and to influence those around us through choices rooted in integrity, compassion, and love. The disciples' examples encourage us to see our ordinary lives as vessels of extraordinary potential, to recognize that dedication, humility, and faithfulness can ripple outward, touching lives we may never fully see, and creating legacies that endure far beyond our immediate circumstances. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of the 12 disciples. If you found their stories inspiring, enlightening, or encouraging, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with others who may benefit from this message. By engaging with this content, you help spread lessons of faith, courage, and service to a wider audience, continuing the mission of transformation that these ordinary yet extraordinary individuals began. May these stories remind you that change is possible, that commitment matters, and that your actions, no matter how small they may seem, have the power to create ripples of goodness in the world. As the night draws near, may you rest with peace, inspired by the courage, devotion, and transformation of those who walked with Jesus, carrying lessons that remain relevant for all who seek purpose and meaning. Good night, and may your dreams be filled with hope, inspiration, and the quiet assurance that every act of faith and service matters, no matter how humble it may appear.